Hi everyone. Sorry I couldn't be here live reading to you today. I am on PPA with Mr. Saunders and Miss Metters, so we can plan an exciting week for you guys next week. That doesn't mean to say we cannot read some of The Hobbit. So I will read the previous sentence and carry on with the story. Also, I should like to know about the risks, out-of-pocket expenses, time required, remuneration, and so forth. By which he meant, what am I going to get out of it? And am I going to come back alive? Oh, very well, said Thorin. Long ago, in my grandfather Thror's time, our family was driven out of the far north and came back with all their wealth and their tools to the mountain on the map. It had been discovered by my far ancestor, Thrain the Old, but now they mined and they tunneled and they made huge halls and great workshops. And in addition, I believe they found a good deal of gold and a great many jewels too. Anyway, they grew immensely rich and famous, and my grandfather was king under the mountain again. And he was treated with great reverence by the mortal men who lived to the south, and were gradually spreading up the running river as far as the valley overshadowed by the mountain. They built the merry town of Dale there in those days. Kings used to send for our smiths and reward even the least skilful most richly. Fathers would beg us to take their sons as apprentices and pay us handsomely, especially in food supplies, which we never bothered to grow or find for ourselves. Altogether, those were the good days for us, and the poorest of us had money to spend and to lend, and leisure to make beautiful things just for the fun of it, not to speak of the most marvellous and magical toys, the like of which is not to be found in the world nowadays. So my grandfather's halls became full of armour and jewels and carvings of cups, and the toy market of Dell was a wonder of the north. Undoubtedly, that was what brought the dragon. Dragons steal gold and jewels, from men and elves and dwarves, wherever they can find them, and they guard their plunder as long as they live, which is practically forever unless they are killed. They never enjoy a brass ring of any of it. Indeed, they hardly know a good bit of work from a bad, though they usually have a good notion of the current market value, and they can't make a thing for themselves, not even mend a little loose scale of their own armour. There were lots of dragons in the north in those days, and gold was probably getting scarce up there. With the dwarves flying south or getting killed, and all the general waste and destruction and dragons make going from bad to worse. There was most especially greedy, strong and wicked worm called Smaug. One day he flew up into the air and came south. The first we heard of it was a noise like a hurricane coming from the north, and the pine trees on the mountain creaking and cracking in the wind. Some of the dwarves who happened to be outside, I was one luckily, a fine adventurous lad in those days, always wandering about, and it saved my life that day. Well, from a good way off, we saw the dragon settle on our mountain in a spout of flame. Then he came down the slopes, and when he reached the woods, they all went up in fire. By that time, all the bells were ringing in Dell, and the warriors were arming. The dwarves rushed out of their great gate, but there was a dragon waiting for them. None escaped that way. The river rushed up in steam and a fog fell on Dell, and in the fog the dragon came on them and destroyed most of the warriors. The usual unhappy story. It was only too common in those days. Then he went back and crept in through the front gate and rooted out all the halls, all the lanes and tunnels and alleys, cellars, mansions and passages. After that, there were no more dwarves left, inside, and he took all of their wealth for himself. Probably for that it is a dragon's way. He has piled it all up in a great heap far inside, and he sleeps on it for a bed. Later he used to crawl out of the gate and come by night to Dale and carry away a few people, especially maidens, to eat, until Dale was ruined and all the people were dead or gone. What goes on there now I don't know for certain, but I don't suppose anyone lives nearer to the mountain than the far edge of the long lake. The few of us that were all outside sat and wept in hiding and cursing Smaug. And there we were unexpectedly joined by my father and grandfather with singed beards. They looked very grim, and they said very little. When I asked how they had got away, they told me to hold my tongue, and said that one day, in the proper time, I should know. After that we went away, and we have had to earn our own livings as best we could, up and down the lands, often sinking as low as a blacksmith, or even coal mining. But we have never forgotten our stolen treasure, and even now, when I will allow we will have a good bit laid by, and are not so badly off. Here Thorin stroked the gold chain around his neck. We still mean to get it back, and to bring our curses home to Smaug, if we can. I have often wondered about my father's and grandfather's escape. I see now that they must have had a private side door which only they knew about, but apparently they made a map, and I should like to know how Gandalf got hold of it, and why it did not come down to me, the rightful heir. I did not get hold of it, I was given it, said the wizard. Your grandfather Thrall was killed, you remember, in the mines of Moria by Azog the Goblin. Curse his name, said Thorin. And Thrain your father went away on the 21st of April, 100 years ago, last Thursday, and he's never been seen by you since. True, true, said Thorin. Well, your father gave me this to give to you, and if I have chosen my own time and my way of handing it over, you can hardly blame me. Considering the trouble I had to find you, your father could not remember his own name when he gave me the paper, and he never told me yours. So, on the whole, I think I ought to be praised and thanked. Here it is, said he, handing the map to Thorin. I don't understand, said Thorin, and Bilbo felt he would have liked to say the same. The explanation did not seem to explain. Your grandfather, said the wizard slowly and grimly, gave the map to his son for safety before he went to the mines of Moria. Your father went away to try his luck with the map after your grandfather was killed. And lots of adventurers of a most unpleasant sort he had, but he never got near the mountain. How he got there, I don't know, but I found him a prisoner in the dungeons of the Necromancer. What were you doing there? Asked Thorin, with a shudder, and all the dwarves shivered. Never you mind. I was finding things out, as usual, and a nasty, dangerous business it was. Even I, Gandalf, only just escaped. I tried to save your father, but it was too late. He was witless and wandering, and had forgotten almost everything except the map and the key. We have long ago paid the goblins of Moria, said Thorin. We must give a thought to the necromancer. Don't be absurd. He is an enemy far beyond the powers of all the dwarves put together. If they could all be collected again from the four corners of the world, the only thing your father wished was for his son to read the map and use the key. The dragon and the mountain are more than big enough tasks for you. Hear, hear, said Bilbo, and accidentally said it aloud. Hear what? They all said, turning towards him, and he was so flustered that he answered, hear what I've got to say. What's that? They asked. Well, I should say that you ought to go east and have a look around. After all, there is a side door, and dragons must sleep sometimes, I suppose. If you sit on the doorstep long enough, I dare say you'll think of something. And well, don't you know, I think we have all talked long enough for one night, if you see what I mean. What about bed? And an early start? All for that? I'll give you a good breakfast before we go. Before we go, don't you mean? Said Thorin. Aren't you the burglar? And isn't sitting on the doorstep your job? Not to speak of getting inside the door, but I agree about bed and breakfast. I like 6 eggs with my ham when starting on a journey, fried, not poached, and mind you don't break 'em. After all the others ordered their breakfast, without so much as a please, which annoyed Bilbo very much, they all got up. The Hobbit had to find room for them all, and filled all his spare rooms and made beds on chairs and sofas before he got them all stowed away and went on his own little bed, very tired and not altogether happy. One thing he did make his mind up about was not to bother to get up very early and cook everybody else's wretched breakfast. The tookishness was wearing off. He was not now quite so sure that he was going on a journey in the morning. As he lay in bed, he could hear Thorin still humming to himself in the best bedroom next to him. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to find our long forgotten gold. Bilbo went to sleep with that in his ears, and it gave him very uncomfortable dreams. It was long after the break of day when he woke up. Okay, guys, that's the end of the first chapter, and chapter 2 is roast mutton. We're going to pause it there, and we'll come back to that next week. Anyway, have a lovely weekend, all of you. Please send in any extra work so we can get it marked and ready for you to read any feedback over the weekend. Have a great one, stay safe, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.